Hey, we just got some new data in talking about what our sellers are expecting. And then we're going to talk about where reality fits in with that and how you can help. So we're Alan and Ming Richardson. We're the managing brokers here at Max One Realtor and Realtor Partners. And we want to jump right into kind of explaining kind of what we're seeing happen here with our sellers.
Absolutely. And I can tell you, there's nothing worse being so excited about your new listing. And then as time progresses, both parties feel like someone's not doing their job.
Mhm.
So we want to talk to you about what their seller expectation is and what can you do to kind of educate them and making sure you guys are going the right path.
Well, and we want to kind of start right off. So there's a recent study by the National Association of Realtors, and in it they talk about the fact that 70% of our sellers think this is a good time.
Why they feel the way that
Yeah.
they do is because right now there is high demand for inventory and low inventory.
Mhm.
So there's a high demand for the product, low inventory compared to pre-pandemic, and also seller felt like the property value is still rising. So we're in good position right now to sell.
Yeah. Also, a lot of our builders are kind of, all the talk of tariffs and not being political about it, but all that talk of tariffs has got our builders kind of like pulling back a little bit. So we're seeing less new construction inventory jump in right now as well.
And you should see a lot more incentive from the new construction home builders right now, especially on their existing product. So therefore, when they have existing product just sitting there, it makes them very apprehensive, especially with all the political. Once again, we're not trying to be political, but I will tell you that it has impact how the economy is rolling right now and how people are feeling about certain things.
Right. So, I mean, the good part is that they're feeling very, very optimistic. The other thing is that when asked, why do you want to sell? Like, what's the reason for selling? And hands down, the number one reason for selling was to go find
Communities.
another neighborhood. They want to move. Now, it doesn't give us a lot of breakdowns as far as like what about the neighborhood, that kind of stuff. Just that, about half of the folks, their main reason for selling is I want to live in another neighborhood, a different neighborhood,
If
that
you
kind of
think
stuff.
about it, during pandemic, a lot of buyers just picked the house that was available. They didn't do a whole lot of research on the community just because inventory was gone as soon as it came on the market if it
Hmm.
was a good price product and move in ready product. So, now they've been there for a few years and they decide either it's not the right neighborhood for them, or the house is too small, or the house is too big, because we do have people downsize as well. So all that factor and combining, it makes them wanting to
That's
look
the
for a
number one
different
reason.
community. and
Yeah.
and also, as we age, as we all do age, um, sometimes our children are graduating from high school, if not moved on and married, and now is settling in a different city than we are, and that motivates them to be near to the
Yeah,
grandkids
about
and
only
what have
about
you.
30% of our sellers actually have children in the home anymore right now.
Correct.
And so that is a big driving factor. Now, the second most likely reason why someone wants to sell,
Make a
they
profit.
want to they want to make some money.
Absolutely.
Show me the money. And so like we get that. Property values have been appreciating, especially here in Georgia over the past 7 years or several years. But like even if you look at from the time COVID till now, we're at about a 56% property value appreciation since COVID hit. So we have a lot of sellers that are sitting on a lot of equity. So I can definitely see that kind of thing going on. Like lifestyle is the biggest reason why people are wanting to move. It's all like whether it's I want to move to a different community, I want to downsize, upsize, all those wrap up together
It is
into
lifestyle.
about lifestyle. And lifestyle is one of those things that's so hard to key in on unless you're really engaged with your folks and you really know what's kind of going on inside your sphere of influence and that kind of stuff. Because it really does come down to community. I mean, to that community, and folks want that sense of community when they move. But that change in lifestyle, that's going to be the biggest driver here at the end of the day.
It is.
So now our sellers are really, really optimistic. And I feel I'm happy that they're optimistic, but I'm not as sure about their reasons for being optimistic. I don't necessarily agree with all of them. And so first thing was like our sellers' expectation of price. 35%, a third of our sellers are expecting to get over asking. And we aren't seeing
A
that as
whole
being,
lot of that right now.
I mean, like, I'm not saying like if you price it right coming out of the gate,
Absolutely.
we can, I mean,
We
or if
can
you, I'm
sell it
sorry, well, I
all
mean,
day.
if you go under asking, we can sell it for more than asking. However, like 46% of our sellers expect to get asking price. 35% expect to get more than asking price. So we're talking about 80% of our sellers expect to get full price or greater. And I don't see that being realistic with everything we're having happen in the market, just because we're seeing interest rates bouncing all over the place. Interest rates have turned into civil, right? And they're just kind of up, down, left, right, sideways. It's affecting the amount of buyer demand that we have, affecting the market right now. And then we're also going to share some other data about what some other big brains inside real estate are really looking at what's happening with price moving forward. I mean, I don't feel that we're in bad shape. I don't think that we're heading into any kind of a recession or anything like that. But I do think that we are softening, and I think that that's going to be a very hard expectation as a listing agent to be able to meet expectations when 80% of our sellers are expecting to sell for full price or asking or greater. That's a scary place
Well,
for us to be able to
that's a
be,
high
right?
expectation. So we always like to over deliver and not under
Under
promise.
promise, and yeah,
So when the bar expectation is way already up here, it's harder to, without making them feel like their expectation are too much. I had conversation recently with my client, and they want to list above what the market value for that neighborhood is. And although I gave him my opinion about, or her, the opinion about what I think the price is going to be based on the data that was in the subdivision, because they had a little more time in their hands, so they're able to list high. But once you get on market, when you have absolute no traffic in 2 weeks, that's an indication that you listed too high,
yeah.
because the house is perfect, immaculate. There's nothing wrong with the home. Matter of fact, it's move-in ready,
But
and what
it,
have you.
but when it's priced too high, it's priced too high.
Correct.
The other market expectation that our sellers have, I mean, 18% of our sellers think that it's going to sell in a shorter amount of time, and
Two
57%
weeks,
think that it's going to be the average time to sell.
30 days.
The hard part is that if you look at what's happened to our days on market this year versus last year, total inventory this year versus last year, total inventory here in Georgia is up. We're up about 30% this year over last year in total inventory. We still haven't hit that pre-COVID level yet, but we are much greater in inventory. And when we have that much more inventory, we've already seen days on market double in the past
Correct.
year, just about. We were averaging, 25 to 30 days on market. Now we're 45 to 60 days on market, depending on the month and that kind of stuff going on. And so this is another one that it's very hard for listing agents to be able to meet expectation, because when they say, I think it's going to take the average amount of time to sell, they're thinking how it was a year ago, that kind of stuff, not what's actually normal or average right now,
Well,
which is a much different time frame.
some of them have bought during COVID time, so they think is same sense of urgency as COVID, but it's not.
Yeah,
So, during COVID, the interest rate was fabulous. It was beautiful. And therefore, you can buy a lot more than you can today. So, therefore, today is about affordability.
yeah,
So, to understand that the market time is going to be as short as during COVID, that is not obtainable.
yeah. The third point where we don't think our sellers are truly ready to engage the market is that right now, of the sellers out there, 27% think that the buyers are going to have to make more concessions. About 36%, a third, think that neither the buyer nor the seller will make any concessions. And what we're seeing in the marketplace right now
A
is not
lot
real.
of people are making concession right now.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that our builders make concessions is because it works, and because when the sellers make concessions, yes, they're making concessions to the buyer, but they're making some concessions to be able to sell their property
Correct.
quickly or faster, and sometimes at
It's
all.
incentives. So if you
And,
think about it,
and so we aren't seeing this like I just see this as being a huge disconnect from what we're seeing in the marketplace, where we are seeing sellers offer closing costs, offering to do these repairs, possibly to buy down rates. We're seeing a lot of opportunities for our sellers to really make their listing stand out. But the idea that they're not going to have to do anything and that the sellers are not going to make any concessions, and the only people who are going to be making the concessions are buyers, I think we've got a big disconnect here about what's really happening
and this is where
in
you
our
need to educate
marketplace.
your client. Pull the comps around neighborhood and show them this sold for that. This is list for this. It's sold for this, and here's a concession.
Yeah,
Okay,
let your comps.
and let your comp
Yeah,
speak in volume because that's what a lot of seller, in order to move or change their lifestyle, they're having to make those having to go ahead and make those concessions because that's what they need.
we see a lot of sellers who say, "I just want to try this price,"
Correct.
and then they kind of get put back in their place with
No,
like
that the gap
reality.
for back in place.
Uh,
It's just that the market demand is not at their expectation.
Yeah, we'll go in and show a comparative market analysis of this is what a buyer's willing to pay for in here, and they'll be like, "Well, I really wanted this number," and we can start with that number as long as there's a plan to get there. And at that point, I'm not saying that we're trying to prove ourselves right or
It's
anything like
not.
that, but it reality does come in. Like the market sets the price. The seller may offer a list price, an asking price, but the final sale price is going to be set by the market. Now, one thing that's going on with our sellers that are on the market here, 60% of them had been thinking about selling for a year.
A year.
60% have been thinking about selling. And so 2 points that we really want to make here. First one is in your engagement with your clients, in talking to the folks that you're working with, you've got to understand that you're like your follow-up has to be good for a year. Those folks that told you 6 months ago that they're thinking about selling,
You might want to reach out to them.
right? That's the big deal because a lot of our sellers are taking identifiable um, jobs, tasks in order to prepare their home to sell. And if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss out on that,
And
right?
some of the hints are they're checking the value of their
I
home
mean,
by asking you
yeah,
or someone else about, hey, what's my house worth in today's market?
3 out of 4 sellers before they actually contacted an agent checked out to see how much their home was worth. And so a lot of us have those how much is your home worth websites and those kind of things out there.
Right. They also research in multiple platforms to see how much a neighborhood is selling for and compare to their property based on square footage and whether or not it's a finished basement or not.
Yeah, a lot of them will, follow up on when you're making tips and advice about properties. They're going to follow that, like it, heart it. You should be following up with those folks.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them will visit open houses, and the reason they're visiting open houses is not as a buyer. They're there because they'll visit the open houses in their neighborhood. They're checking out the
Correct.
competition, right? And so we're missing that. A lot of our sellers have already done repairs and have asked their agents or asked agents, what repairs should I do? See, of those folks that did
These are
all these
hints.
things ahead of time, only a third, 36%, actually talked to a real estate agent, right? And so only a third actually reached out to the agent. And so like a lot of these sellers, they're like you just have to be able to pick up on this because they're going through the steps to get their home ready, to get themselves mentally prepared, all the things out there. And we're just kind of bouncing around like, I don't know where I got any business coming from, right? Pay attention,
Pay
right?
attention to some of these hints and tips because you may have a reach out to those folks.
Yeah.
You may be pleasantly surprised that you may get a listing just because you
Yeah.
answered the phone and you answered their question. And now you're doing other thing for them to where they feel comfortable with you.
Now, about half of our sellers, or half of our potential sellers, let me rephrase that, currently feel locked in
Yep.
due to high mortgage rates. Now, we have seen where mortgage rates throughout most of the year were really heading into a very good area. And then all of a sudden, the markets went nutty and everything's happened and tariffs and this and yada, yada, yada. Look, it is going to settle back out. We are seeing good reasons why we're going to see mortgage rates moving down, continue to head down as we move forward. We're just in a time of a lot of economic upheaval that we are just going to have to kind of
The market is
struggle
a
through
little
here.
uncertain right now, and when there's uncertainty and not a definitive traction of where we're going, a lot of people get
Yeah.
a little frenzy, and that's where we are right now. So,
Well, yeah.
and that's what the interest rate is doing in reflection of the market.
Well, and when you look at these same sellers, NAR went and said, "Hey, what do you think is going to happen with interest rates?" Over half of them think it's going up. Over half of our sellers right now think the interest rates are going up. And while I don't have a crystal ball, we are looking at interest rates kind of moderating. And I know in the short term it may be going up or down.
Kind of like stock market right
It's
now.
gonna be bouncing around. I get it, but roughly half of our folks are expecting to go up, about a third are expecting it to stay the same, and only about 20% are expecting interest rates to drop. So I do see interest rates moving in the right direction as we progress through the year. It may not be next week and that kind of stuff. We're still going to see a lot of economic issues going on. That
Absolutely.
being said, again, our sellers are they are paying a lot of attention to a lot of things, but they're missing out on some really big data points. And so another one that we want to kind of stress is, so like just this week, Georgia MLS, they issued, they made a press release saying 2025 is going to be the year of opportunity for
Buyers.
buyers, year of opportunity for buyers. And so again, I'm not saying it's a bad time to buy or list or sell or anything like that. I'm just saying that Georgia Melissa is like, look, we see the data, we see the writing on the wall that this should be a really good year for buyers.
Buyers.
And on the same day that that happened, Zillow went out and they released their economic forecast. And at the beginning of the year, Zillow said, look, we're looking for property values in the US overall to jump,
2.9.
go up 2.9%. And then they tapered it down, said, oh, okay, maybe it's just going to be 1.1%. And then another month they came along, they're like, oh, okay, it's
I
going to go
think it'll
down
be a
to,
negative 1.7.
and now, yeah, so they just released this and said, look, we're looking at property values in the US dropping by 1.7%. And then we actually pulled up, in Georgia, what are they looking for the Atlanta MSA and Georgia in particular? And, their prediction for Georgia is down 1.5%. Now, 1.5% is not earth shattering. It is not deal breaker range. We're not seeing huge property value depreciation by any means. If you're going to have a 1.5% drop for the year, that means that one month you might be zero point 0.2 up, next month you might be zero point 0.3 down, next month you might be zero point 0.4 up, and then next month you might be zero point 0.5 down. At the end of the year, it may work out to a negative 1.5 points. And that's if Zilla's right. All I'm saying is that we see the headwinds indicating that our sellers maybe aren't heading into I mean, like our expectations of the sellers, we feel is different than what we see happening in the market, and we're trying to prepare you, our
The
real estate
agent.
professionals, right, to be able to go and meet and talk with our clients and be able to explain what's really happening in the marketplace. I don't want you to go on a listing appointment and then be like, oh, I'm sure that we're going to sell for over asking. We should do it by the end of the week, kind of thing. I mean, like this thing's going to go real fast. We need to be preparing our sellers for what this
And
marketplace
if the
holds.
seller does not like your presentation, meaning that they don't like the price you suggest, then given the opportunity, say we can start this, but at the end of the day, your home's only worth what a buyer's able to afford or think the value is. So have those real conversations. So into 2 weeks, they're not glaring at you and make you feel this small. You already had that
Right.
conversation up front.
You do not want to take an overpriced listing. It becomes the bane of your existence, right? Because as soon as you take that overpriced listing, the seller's like, hey, why have you sold my
Wow.
house yet? What are you doing? And then,
Yeah.
oh, I need you to do an open house. Obviously, it's the open house that you haven't done. And then what sites are you marketing this on? And what are you doing to market here? Have you boosted this on here? And have you and like, oh yeah, let's go spend a lot of money on an overpriced listing because you weren't honest with your clients. So if you
Well,
go in and say,
you're just spinning your wheel.
look, this is where we see the market right now. This is what buyers are willing to pay for in your neighborhood. And they say, well, I want to try it here. And you say, look, it really needs to be closer to this price. But, we can start here, but we need to be ready to move here. And
Correct.
then they put it on the market and then no one comes. And then when that's at that point, you can say, remember when I said this is going to be our price range. This is what the buyers are indicating that they're willing to spend for a home similar to yours in this neighborhood. But if you just go out and say, "Yep, no problem. Oh yeah, yeah, I'm sure we'll be under contract right away. Oh yeah, yeah, we shouldn't have to be. Don't be planning on offering any closing costs or anything like that." I would. I'm going to advise you to be very, very careful about that. We need to set our sellers up for for success, and so that's going to clear. I mean, it's going to be imperative that we have clear expectations
Correct.
about what we're kind of seeing in the market. We aren't seeing massive drops. We aren't seeing big things happen, those kind of stuff. But we do want to make sure that we are.
Giving the right expectation. I mean, where seller is looking at up here, we're probably right over here realistically. So you just need to give the right expectation what the market's doing versus then glaring at you after 2 weeks and make you feel like you're not doing your job when you have spent tons of marketing dollar on advertising, photography, and
Mhm.
everything else. So
So thank you guys so very much. If we can be of any kind of assistance, please call, text, smoke signals. Have a great week.
thank you. Have a great
Bye
day.
now.